Alright, we're back, of course, talking FF7 here with a pretty different topic. We're talking about Astro Bot, something I never planned to fucking talk about on the channel at all. But a pretty common discussion since Astro Bot came out was the lack of any kind of Final Fantasy reference, specifically Final Fantasy 7. The previous game, like Astro's Playroom, had obviously a Buster Sword in it. Astro Bot came out a couple weeks ago, and there was a distinct lack of not only FF7, there's not anything Square Enix at all in the game. And everybody found that to be kind of weird. You can find like all kinds of like Reddit posts and articles talking about it. Pretty much been a topic of discussion since Astro Bot came out, and there's all kinds of like ideas and theories out there for why that might be, but we do have an update on that from actually the Team Asobi head himself, Nicolas Doucet, I think is how you say his name. Team Asobi being the ones that made Astro Bots, and it seems to be because of Square Enix. So he did an interview with GameFile. It's one of those websites where you have to like pay to read the entire article. They do have a free trial option. I'm not going to be bothered to fucking do that. We're just going to read the quote from a different article. So we're just going to use Eurogamer's article on this topic. Team Asobi says that while almost 100% of its most wishlist iconic Sony characters made it into Astro Bot, it finds it difficult to comment why Square Enix characters were missing. Talking to journalist Steven Totolo, whatever the fuck his name is, Team Asobi studio head Nicolas Doucet said that despite hoping that maybe half of the characters the team approached would be greenlit, most partners just raised their hand and said, absolutely. However, not all characters on the list made it in. When asked why there were no Final Fantasy VII's Cloud cameo, for instance, or indeed anyone from Nier or Kingdom Hearts, Doucet simply said it really respects the choice of each publisher. Here's the full quote, essentially. It's difficult to comment on why Square Enix didn't approve any cameos, Doucet explained. We really respect the choice of each publisher. According to the studio head for the studio that fucking made Astro Bot, it was the publisher's choice to not have some sort of like Final Fantasy or Square Enix cameo at all in Astro Bot. Which is strange to me because I don't see the reason why that'd be the case. It just doesn't make sense to me. I see people try to defend Square Enix in a couple different ways. One of them being like maybe it's a money thing. Is that the case though? Would Team Asobi have to like pay all these other studios? Like there's so many goddamn references. There's like hundreds of like Astro Bot characters in the game, right? That you like come across from all kinds of different games and shit, right? So like would they really have to like pay the studios for all that shit? I don't know. I mean, it sort of makes sense, obviously, because you're technically in some way or another kind of using their character, right? So maybe there's like a licensing thing there, but I think there's like 300 robots in the game, right? I don't know if they're all robots from individually 300 different games or however that might work, but maybe it is a money thing, but like how much would Square Enix or any particular studio expect just to have a little robot that kind of looks like your character? But also, as we previously read, like Doucet mentioned that like they thought that maybe like half the characters they were wanting would be greenlit, but like the majority of people they approached just said absolutely. So I don't know if there is any money involved, and if it is, it might just be like a minuscule amount. So there seems to be like another reason potentially for why Square Enix would deny having like a Final Fantasy or just Square Enix reference in the game. It could be like a licensing thing too, just because I know it like took a while to get like the rights for Cloud to be in Smash Bros, right? If I'm not mistaken, like it took like years to actually happen, right? I don't know the full details of that. I've just heard of that over the years, that it was kind of difficult to get him into Smash Bros or whatever. But at the same time, it's like if it's difficult to get the rights for like Cloud in another game or some shit, if they were being like hard-headed about that, could they not have just done like a Buster Sword again or like a fucking Keyblade, you know, to reference goddamn Kingdom Hearts, or a weapon from Nier or something like that? Some sort of Square Enix reference somewhere along the way throughout the game of Astro Bot. One of the other things I've kind of heard that's like sort of in defense of Square Enix is that maybe they don't want to be seen as like a PlayStation studio anymore, even though they are third party. They've been making like exclusives forever, right? And maybe that's why they're like, they don't want Cloud or something, or some sort of Square Enix reference in Astro Bot. But it's like this game's obviously paying homage to like the history of PlayStation, right? And it's very distinctly Final Fantasy VII. Maybe not like Square Enix as a whole technically in some ways, but you do have like Xenogears and other shit from back in the day. But specifically like FF7 on the PS1 is very, very important to the history of PlayStation. Even if Square Enix wanted to like move away from being like in the shadow of PlayStation or whatever the fuck, because they wanted to do like a multi-platform strategy going forward, nobody's gonna like fire up Astro Bot and see a fucking Cloud bot in the game and be like, God damn it, more exclusives. It's clearly not what that game's about. Like nobody's thinking that at all when they're looking at like a Cloud bot in the game, if it was in the game, right? In fact, it's like causing more problems that it's not in there, because people are like, what the fuck? Why is it not in there? Because it should be there. Come to this conversation here where, according to the people that make the game, it was the publisher's choice to not have like a Cloud reference or a Square Enix reference at all in the game, and that makes them look bad, because it's like, why would the fuck would you want to do that? Why would you not want to be a part of this game that's paying love to like the history of PlayStation, dude? It's just kind of ridiculous, and just makes Square Enix look bad to me. It's come from somebody that does not give a shit about Astro Bot. It's not to say that it's a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not a game that I care about. I never even played Astro's Playroom when I first got my PS5. It's, to me, you know, putting aside like I guess money if that's a problem, or licensing if that's a problem, I only see it as a net positive to have some sort of Square Enix reference in a fucking game like Astro Bot. I did see people talk about how cool it would have been to have like an FF7 themed world in Astro Bot, and that is pretty cool. Like that might have been something that would maybe compel me to want to check the game out. I mean, I like a lot of other PlayStation IPs and shit, but like if there's a some FF7 dedicated world in the game, it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of fucking cool. I got to check it out. Or maybe like a world that's dedicated to like Square Enix in general that has a couple different bots that are a couple different things that are referencing Square Enix games. I don't know what you do, but that would have been cool. But I think it's a missed opportunity for Square Enix, and it's a missed opportunity for the fans, obviously, that love Astro Bot and love Square Enix games. Maybe we'll get more information in the future for precisely why there wasn't this, if it was like a licensing thing. But still, like, what is the downside? Like, if there's like licensing holding up, like who's the person or people that are like, I don't know if we want to have a cloud themed character in Astro Bot. Like, I don't know if that looks good for us, or like, what is the reason for holding that up? Just say yes, you fucking idiots. Because to me, like I said previously, I think it makes Square Enix look bad, and I assume they probably look bad to a decent amount of people out there for saying no to this, because why would you say no to this? It's also weird when you look at the fact that, like, there's Crash Bandicoot in Astro Bot, which obviously there's a history of Crash Bandicoot on PlayStation, duh. But it's owned by Microsoft now. It's an Xbox character these days, right? But they approved for Crash Bandicoot to be in Astro Bot, a PlayStation 5 exclusive game. But Square Enix said no. It's just fucking weird. That's kind of it for the video, my dudes. Just pass off to you guys. For those of you that actually have played Astro Bot, like, what are your thoughts on this? If you're a fan, I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably watch the channel somewhat regularly, so you're probably an FF7 fan. What are your thoughts on the fact that there wasn't an FF7 or just Final Fantasy or just Square Enix reference in the game? But also the fact that it seems to be Square Enix's fault that there wasn't. Like, what are your thoughts? That's the video. Subscribe to if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DavidYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.